Terri Vinson, thank you so much for joining me today. We are working together with Synergy Skin and Professional Beauty to produce a webinar speaking to you directly as both a skincare formulator and brand founder of Synergy Skin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Hannah. I'm excited to talk about both journeys and have a good chat along the way.
Absolutely. Well, let's get stuck into some questions. The first one I have for you, Terri, can you take us back to the beginning of your career? What inspired you to work in science?
Wow, it goes back a long, long way. And it goes back to when I was a 13, 14-year-old. I had a passion for science at school. I loved biology, I loved chemistry, and I had a really inspirational biology teacher who just went the extra mile for the students. And I did my final year at school with her. She even, this is really dating me, but we had cassette recorders back in the day, and she used to tape biology, the Web of Life biology classes, and we could take them home at night and learn the biology for the exams. And she just was an inspiration. She actually believed in me. And I think also the thing that made me absolutely love science was my dad. My dad was a feminist well ahead of his time, and he really believed in women pursuing anything they wanted. And back in the day, we're talking about the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, a lot of girls didn't traditionally do science and pursue a career in science. And my dad was great. And so he said, if you love this, you should absolutely do it. And I think that always gave me that confidence to pursue my dream. And you know what, being a skincare formulator, I'm not a rocket scientist, I'm not a brain surgeon, but I do what I can for confidence in people, primarily women, but also a lot of men. And I think if I can formulate skincare to make a difference in the health of skin and also the confidence of people, then the science, the marriage of science and beauty is a marriage made in heaven to me.
I was going to move on to even sort of go into that and talk about the fact that you're a woman of business and you tend to pivot between the woman in the white lab coat and the stylish businesswoman that we see fronting Synergy Skin. What did you learn about the skin in those early days when you opened your very own salon business?
Yeah, so I did. I opened my clinic almost 20 years ago now, and back in the day, there were a few challenges along the way, and it sort of pushed me into basically stepping up for the family financially. But I didn't want to do anything that I didn't absolutely love. And because my background, I went to university, I studied immunology, microbiology. I had a huge love of how cells work, the biology of the human body, but also the beauty industry. It seemed to me probably a logical progression. The other thing I realized is in the early days, you can't hit the ground running at a million miles an hour and make changes instantly. It was an organic growth for Synergy, and I had to, well, it wasn't Synergy back then, it was Skin Formation, and that was the name of the clinic, and it was a really little brand called Skin Formation, which was about 6 or 7 products. I couldn't push it, I couldn't go too quickly. I had to really listen to my clients, and I think that's one of my valuable lessons. I think having those clients at that clinic at that point, because my job was the formulator and the consultant. I wasn't a beauty therapist, I'm not a beauty therapist, so I had a wonderful therapist working there and a nurse at the time. But creating those formulas, getting that feedback, having the most wonderful group of primarily women as my testing ground. I wouldn't call them guinea pigs, because I actually had things formulated in a compounding lab back in the day, because I didn't have my own lab. So it was very well formulated and in the cleanest of circumstances. But they said to me, Terri, this product works, but it doesn't smell good, it doesn't feel good, it's not pretty enough. I started to learn more about the elegance of formulations and really listening. And I think taking it slowly, listening to my clients, and also one of the big light bulb moments for me was when the GFC hit in 2007, 2008. And I had a clinic. I bought an expensive laser machine, which was over $100,000 at the time, which was huge expense. I had a wonderful beauty therapist working for me, but people couldn't afford to have the treatments anymore. They couldn't afford the hair removal. They couldn't afford the injectables, but they couldn't not afford to have my skincare. And I only had a few cult products then, but I had a bit of a following. It was a little bit like an urban secret. And they would say to me, Terri, I can't afford the treatment, but I need your vitamin B serum. And I thought, wow, that was such a light bulb moment to me. And I realized I'm a formulator. I'm a woman that understands the needs of my clients. I really should just be focusing on that. And that was my aha moment when I basically, my therapist went her own way. She's still a really successful therapist to this day and we're friends. I sold my machine. I gave away my database to a local beauty therapy clinic called Talking Beauty, and they're still operating today. And I opened up my own lab. And that was my heading north moment. Everything just was wonderful from then on, because I was doing what I was probably always meant to do, which was the formulating.
And I suppose that, obviously we're not necessarily going through a GFC now, but I think a lot of what you're saying would probably ring true to a lot of our listeners now, and that, inflation is an issue for Australians at the moment, particularly salon owners. So I think even for those clients that they have coming in, at least that you can rely on that skincare that you produce, and people have that relationship with the brand already, and it's still a valuable investment to people, even if they can't afford other treatments.
Hannah, that is such an important point to talk about. That was, we are going to go through very tough times. I'm facing very, very challenging times at the moment with supply chain issues. Thank God we're vertically integrated and we make everything, because I really feel sorry for a few of my competitors at the moment who buy finished goods elsewhere. But it is difficult. You have to have that relationship. You have to make products that incite trust in your clients. But skincare and makeup are things that people actually don't stint on when times are tough. So I think as a clinic owner back then, I really had to focus on that and realize that the machines were the first thing. I hate to say it, but people stop having the expensive treatments, but they don't stop having their skincare.
And so just sort of going back to this time, 2007, 2008, you had opened your own clinic. You, I understand, were at the age of 40 at this time. What compelled you to start again?
It wasn't really starting again, because I'd already worked for a skincare company, helping them with their formulations and also their education. So that was for quite a period of time. Then I started a medical marketing business where I was the liaison between the client and the doctor or plastic surgery about the ingredients they were putting on their skin. So I was already kind of in that space. But my heart and my love was always in formulating. And to be honest, I was going through a really tough time in my marriage, a tough time financially. I had two wonderful teenage kids that I had to support. And I knew if I really stepped up, I'd have to do something that was long-term and meaningful. And there was another part of me that had a tug to do something that I felt would make a difference. And being, I'm adopted, and I've always felt like there was something in me that had to make my mark, because often when I looked behind me, I didn't really have a sense of kind of belonging. Well, I feel that now, but at the time I didn't. I felt a bit disconnected, and I wanted to forge my path in the future. And I think that was really, really important to me. So I didn't feel like I was reinventing myself, because I'm in my late 50s now. I'm nearly 60, in fact. And
you would never think it. Look at you.
I'm 60 in January, but this is the last time I'll probably ever tell anyone my age. But honestly, I feel like I've got so many. I don't feel it. My brain doesn't feel it. My body doesn't feel it. I feel like I've got decades ahead of me. I probably haven't, but age to me isn't a thing. And when you're always curious and always learning, you can start at any age. So ladies out there who are over 40, don't stop believing and don't stop dreaming.
Love it. So inspiring. Let's talk about the skin for a second. So from a very scientific perspective, you've been said to say that aging starts from the age of 25, which is quite young. Describe exactly what is happening under the surface of the skin at this time.
Well, our bodies are designed to work in perfect, what's called homeostasis, and, energy in, energy out. Collagen is in balance, hyaluronic acid is in balance, cell turnover is in balance. And as we age, and that usually begins from our mid-20s, many things occur, and the balance is out. Even our free radical balance. When a young child has so many antioxidants naturally in their bodies that are able to combat free radicals. As we age, we haven't got that. So we've got external factors. We've got solar energy, UVA, UVB, infrared, blue light. We've got pollution. We've got stresses from nutrition, poor nutrition. We've also got natural intrinsic aging. Our telomeres are shortening. And this all begins from 25. I think it starts at 25, but we really need to focus on skincare in our 30s when we begin to see those first signs of sunspots, those fine lines. And then the big change, particularly for a woman, is perimenopause and menopause, when our estrogen drops. And that's when our collagen significantly drops, our hyaluronic acid, we become less able to defend ourselves from sun damage. So it does occur in blocks, but I think starting from your mid-20s, if you don't have a really good sun protection routine and a really good skincare routine, you're going to be up against the 8 ball in your 30s and 40s.
That's right. That is the biggest tip I give to my girlfriends when they ask me, what product should I use? SPF, always.
Yep,
if you're not using sunscreen, you're already losing. So
don't even bother. That's your insurance policy. I mean, you look at, for example, areas of the body that haven't seen the sun in a really elderly person, and their skin's perfect there. It's where their body's seen the sun that's got the problems. So we need to look after ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this concept of clean science. So this is a term that you coined quite early on when you started your brand, and it's sort of as much ingrained in my mind when I think of the brand as is Synergy Skin. So you mentioned in your book Skinformation, which is a fabulous read, that limiting your ingredient library to 100% natural is not necessarily the best choice for getting the best results. So from thinking about that, are organic and natural skincare products going to achieve long-term results?
I think we really need to break that down into what sort of natural and organic ingredients are being used. And there's two different, very different movements. There's the clean beauty movement, and then there's the clean science movement. And way back, over 15 years ago, I actually IP'd the phrase clean science. I was actually in a medical conference in Las Vegas with a doctor friend of mine, who she were just talking about the brand, and I just said, well, Synergy really is clean science. And she was a really clever girl, and she said, you should IP that. And I said, oh, as if I cannot IP that phrase, it's too common. And I rang my lawyer that night because I was in Vegas, she's in Melbourne, and I said, can I IP clean science? I'm sure I can't. And she said, yes, you can. So I own that. But apart from that, it is a really important phrase, because it's not clean and necessarily natural, because you really have to embrace synthetics. And I think the clean beauty movement, a lot of them say, oh, you've got to have natural, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. In fact, the minute you process any ingredient, even glycerin, even aloe vera, it is no longer 100% natural. It may be naturally derived, but it's no longer 100% natural. Also, think of an ingredient like a natural ingredient too, for example, arsenic and lead. Arsenic and lead are lethal. They are completely natural. Lead is a metal, it's a heavy metal. I am no way going to put lead in my products and say, oh, lead's natural, let's pop it in. And another example, we use an ingredient that is created by bacteria that live on the surface of algae, only found off the coast of Brittany in France. And this particular ingredient increases the production of healthy stem cells in our skin. It's a really, really important ingredient. So we've got a choice. As a scientist, and the suppliers I buy this ingredient from, they could have either pillaged the coast of Brittany, got all the seaweed, got the bacteria, extracted the phycosaccharide and put it in the products. That's 100% naturally derived. That's option one. Okay, option two is taking one bacteria from that seaweed off the coast of Brittany, taking it back to a lab, and cloning that bacteria and reproducing it a million upon million upon million times and creating this particular pure ingredient that is more sustainable and more ethical. One's synthetic, one's natural. Make the choice. And that's why I believe that laboratory made ingredients really need to be talked about. Synthetics, there's a lot of synthetics out there that are life-saving. There's a lot of synthetics out there. For example, the peptides I use in so many of my formulations are 100% man-made, laboratory made, but boy, they pack a punch. So we need to say clean science is the best of what nature can provide, naturally derived, not natural, harnessed together with what laboratory science can provide without anything questionable or harmful. And there's another part to this, fear-mongering, which I absolutely hate. Okay, so I don't want to be the person that says, oh, paraben preservatives, they're going to kill you, they'll give you breast cancer, or you're going to get very, very sick if you put in on a chemical sunscreen. Far from it. But what I believe in, if there is some negative information or negative data about an ingredient, I will choose not to have that in my laboratory. That's my choice. And if they're questionable, not necessarily lethal, I won't have them. But I'm not saying they're going to kill you. And if that's your choice to use paraben preservatives, I'm sure you're not going to get breast cancer anytime soon. But my choice is to use ingredients with a very, very clean safety profile, whether they're synthetic or whether they're naturally derived. Does that make sense?
It's a bit of a catch-22 around sort of the consumer mindset when it comes to these things, because you've kind of got one side where people are super conscious and, you know, natural to them is sort of the best way to go. But then at the same time, you sort of don't quite understand exactly what's going on in that natural product. So, I mean, there's sort of two ways to look at it. But I think because of the fact that people are now more educated, you know, there's a good thing there, because they're sort of starting to kind of better understand what it is that are in their products, and with
question it.
Synergy, they can kind of go, okay, well, the ingredients are really clear and there's a real process.
Yeah, and transparency is really important for us as a company too. And you know, you can read our ingredient list and realize that these ingredients are incredibly safe. And there are ingredients that have been discovered over the years. So a lot of companies say, well, if they're in there, they must be safe and there's no problems. That's not true either, because over years, bodies like the FDA and the TGA and the EU can find issues with these ingredients. Ingredients that might be innocuous at the beginning, a few years later, we might find out they're causing sensitivity issues. So I always try and keep on top of things. And if it's not completely safe and ethical in my laboratory, I won't use it. Or if I find out something isn't working, I will remove it.
Again, in your book's information, you provide a really great description of what a cosmeceutical is. And you outline that, I suppose, you outline that it's, sorry, I'm just thinking, you talk about what a cosmeceutical is and how those ingredients that are active are so necessary in your products. So you also in your book talk about the seed principle. So what is this? Why should salon owners take note, and why should they be across what is going on when they're selecting the best possible skincare range to stock for their business when it comes to actives?
And I also think this is really important to consider when their clients talk to them and say, well, why shouldn't I go to Chemist Warehouse and buy my products? Why should I come to you? And they need to talk about the ingredients and also the dosages. And I love my acronyms. And I think when I started formulating Synergy, I wanted it, and I did a lot of talks at conferences. A few people listening today probably heard my seed talk, which I probably gave almost 10 years ago now. And it's every single product that I formulate has to fall under what I call my SEED principle. So S is for stability. Every single ingredient must be stable. Emulsions can't separate. Ingredients can't go off. They can't oxidize. So I have to make sure that for the life of that product, from the moment the consumer opens it, for at least a year, depending on the shelf life, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, for that shelf life, that product must be as good the day you open it till the day you finish it, or the day that shelf life expires. That's really important. So, for example, vitamin C is very tricky to stabilize, and I've managed to actually got a brand new derivative that's incredible, that works well for 3 years. Stability is important. The second thing, E. E is for effectiveness. If it doesn't work, what is the point? And so when I get the clinical data from the supplier about that particular ingredient, for example, a peptide, they will say, this particular ingredient reduces the appearance of pigmented lesions by 60% at a dosage of 1%. So why the heck would I not use it at 1%? But a lot of companies and a lot of disreputable companies may decide to just say it's in there and say acetyl hexapeptide is in, it's great, it'll get rid of your pigmented lesions, and we'll put in at 0.1% just to say it's there. Wrong. It has to work. If it doesn't work, don't even think about it. The third part of the seed is another E, which is elegance. And this is the thing I learned about in the early days of skin formation in my clinic. You could have the best product that works for your customers, but if it doesn't smell good, feel good, look good, they won't use it. Because the first thing people do when they put a product on their hand is go, smell it, feel it, do that. Even if it's not on their hand, it has to be that sensorial experience. So elegance is a big lesson I learned, and everything has to be dictated towards, after effectiveness has to be elegance. And finally, the D, SEED, is delivery. Every single active ingredient has a function, and that function is related to the cell. And it could be a fibroblast, it could be a melanocyte, it could be an epidermal cell. So it has to get to that cell to create the effect, and that is your delivery. Many different ingredients have different delivery mechanisms. You can have liposomal delivery, you could have delivery through the aquapores, the water receptors on the skin, between the intercellular spaces, the lipophilic spaces. It could be through pH differences. So you have to talk about the delivery, it has to get there. So I always say, look at the seed principle and make sure your brand is delivering what it says. Sorry, my answers are so long, and I know.
No, that is, but it's so great. I mean, this is why I did love your book, because you break things down in such a digestible manner. So regardless of whether you are a skincare expert or you're just a consumer, it's great to understand why you do what you do and what people should be looking out for when they're purchasing these products.
Yeah. It's there's definitely a huge difference between what a skin professional recommends for you in that space versus walking down the supermarket shelves and picking something up. Just to digress for a second before we talk further, I picked up a mask in Woolies supermarket in Melbourne 2 years ago, and I was doing a talk for Professor Lou at a cosmetic conference, and he said, Terry, can you please talk about over-the-counter vitamin A versus cosmeceutical versus prescription? And I thought, oh my God, I love that topic. So that was my talk topic. So it was so much fun. So I walked down the supermarket. I was like, okay, I'll pick up this retinol mask, and it's what it said, retinol mask. I thought, I'll read the ingredients. Where's the retinol? Could not find it. It was retinol palmitate, one of the most old-fashioned retinoid derivatives on the market. It wasn't even retinol. So the ACCC would have had a field day. So that's why people need to go to the therapists and the skin professionals and not walk down Woolies aisle 6.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you flagged that, because I know again, that's something I have to educate my girlfriends on too.
Yeah, exactly.
I also love the chapter in your book on skincare essentials, and that really delved into the ABCs of actives and why they're so effective. Why is it that you recommend using A's and B's in the evening and to not mix it with C's and acids?
Okay, so it's a very broad rule, but it's basically acids don't like retinol and acids don't like niacinamides. So when we talk acids, we talk about a product with a low pH. So anything, say, pH 4 and under is not going to be compatible with retinol and niacinamide. Now, there's been a little bit of argy-bargy online saying that that's not true. You can mix acids and niacinamide. I'm sorry, that's not true. When you mix a strong acid with niacinamide, it hydrolyzes to nicotinic acid. And even the suppliers, and we get our niacinamide from Germany, they say, do not formulate this product at a low pH. So if that was the case, then anyway, I rest my case with that one. So for example, L-ascorbic acid powder, where we do have a product which we mix with a serum or water at a 1:4 ratio. When you do that, you'll end up with about a pH of anywhere between 2.2 and 3, very, very low, highly acidic. It's great if your skin can handle it. A lot of skins can, but you would never mix that with niacinamide. Apart from that, so that's just acidic solutions. A lot of new vitamin C's you absolutely could mix with niacinamide. However, rule of thumb, A's and B's at night, C's in the morning. The other reason I love C in the morning is it's a great protector against UVB and UVA damage. It's not a sunscreen, but it protects against the cellular damage from solar radiation. So I love vitamin C in the morning. It's just a staple for me. The other thing is retinol, and there's a lot of companies that use retinol as their vitamin A, does not like acidic solutions either. So there are other forms of retinoids that are okay with acids, but not retinol. So just rule of thumb, A's and B's at night, C in the morning, and then just keep them separated.
Good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So putting my head in sort of the mind of a consumer of skincare, which I know we all are, how do you and your stock effectively educate clients on the correct ways to use these actives? Because it's just a complete minefield for someone who doesn't understand it.
Yeah, look, it is a minefield, and I think we need to break it down and keep it really simple. I think the days of having, the Korean method of 1,000 different steps in your skincare routine, we're trying to simplify that now. I think I always say you need cleanse, you need prep, you need serums, moisturizer, sunscreen. They're your categories. So whatever cleanser suits you, and that's down to the customer. Have they got particularly stressed barriers? Then we need a gentle cleanser. I always avoid SLS because I find that can be stripping and drying, not necessarily dangerous, but if you've got sensitive skin, try and go for the SLS-free versions. Always go for a pre-serum elixir that balances the microbiome. That's something I now do twice a day. Particularly because our barrier is so compromised at the moment. Everybody's is pretty much. And then your serums. And the serums are, so you've got your cleanser, your pre-serum. Your serums are always focused on what you need, but always A, B, C. C in the morning, A and B at night, unless you're pregnant, and you shouldn't use A because they don't test A on pregnant women. So avoid A if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. Then you've got your serums for specific needs. Are you aging? Do you need an anti-aging serum? Do you need an eye serum? I know I do. I'm aging. So if you're really young in your early 20s, possibly not. So are you an anti-aging person? Those serums will be relevant to you. Have you got sensitive skin? You might need a moisturizer, particularly for sensitive skin. Have you got acne? So you need to talk to the client. It's not about giving them 1,000 products. It's about deciding, firstly, what they need, and secondly, what their budget is. So if they're happy to take a full regimen, that's wonderful. But you might have a young girl who really has got a relatively modest salary, and she can probably only afford 2 products. And that's when a therapist, as a professional, needs to make that educated decision and talk them through it. I think clients are really savvy now, and I learned so much from my early days at Skin Formation Clinic. They know what they want, and often they are as educated as the next person in terms of what they've read. And it's not just rubbish posts online, it's actual studies they've read. So I love that, but bring them on the journey, because if you bring them on the journey with the education, they will be very, very loyal customers.
In your book, you make what I would consider to be a potentially controversial point regarding collagen as well, which is another ingredient. You argue that collagen, whether it's ingested or applied topically, doesn't work. Talk us through that.
Well, it depends what you consider working. So let's talk about the ingestible stuff first. It is the most expensive piece of organic protein that you could ever buy, is a collagen supplement. So digestive system 101, and I've had so many people talk to me online who sell collagen supplements or who are part of movements that sell collagen supplements. So when we take in collagen, for example, collagen is a very, very big, complex protein molecule. It's very large. when we eat it, it has to go through our esophagus, then into our stomach. In our stomach, we've got the lowest pH ever of hydrochloric acid, and that job is to break down or hydrolyze the protein into very, very small units, peptides or amino acids. Further to that, our small intestine undergoes further digestion. So by the time it gets to the part of our bodies where we absorb it, that big chunky protein molecule of collagen is a tiny little amino acid or different amino acids. They're the things that cross our small intestine barrier and go to our bloodstream. So collagen on the inside of our bodies, on our gastrointestinal side, on the small intestine side, maybe collagen, but when it crosses over, it's an amino acid. It doesn't have a brain to say, let's reassemble as collagen and go straight to the skin. That's where we need to go. No, it's going to say, we're happy little amino acids. We can make any protein now. We could make a hormone, we could make muscle cell, we could make many different proteins in the body. We could make collagen if we want. Is the body depleted of collagen? Okay, let's go to the skin, stimulate the fibroblast and make collagen. It might do that, but you're just as well to eat a really good quality piece of organic fish or meat or legumes. If you're a vegan, you don't need this expensive collagen. It still will be a good protein source. That's undoubted, but it's a very expensive way of doing it. And then when they say it's hydrolyzed collagen, this is another buzzword. Hydrolyzed collagen is collagen that's been chopped up into little pieces. It's still not small enough to cross the intestine, and it won't become, the bodies won't instantly recognize, and it won't go to the skin. That's not how the digestive system works. So that's the ingestible style of collagen. And then the topical, it's actually really nice as a film former. Again, too big. It's like trying to stick a football through a letterbox. You're not going to be able to do it. And so what you need is to be able to get the amino acids or the peptides, like peptide technology, that is small enough, under 50 Daltons is the molecular weight, to get through the skin. Collagen is massive. It's thousands of Daltons in size. But what it does do, it visually improves the look of the skin by sitting on top and forming a nice little film. So if you're saying it doesn't work, it works in terms of it makes your skin look better, but it's not going to function effectively in the dermis.
Right, which is where we need those actives to come in.
Exactly. or the lower epidermis. Yeah, I mean, just sitting on the stratum corneum isn't going to cut it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I do have a couple more questions for you, Terri, so I won't keep you too much longer. But just thinking about where we are today, skincare professionals have seen this rise in inflammatory skin conditions, particularly since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic over the last couple of years. How do you think the pandemic has changed the skincare industry and the products that you formulate? And are there any key issues that you're looking at targeting in the future?
At the moment, I'm really pleased that prior to COVID, I saw a huge the importance of protecting the microbiome, because I know the gut microbiome is imperative. I mean, we make more serotonin in our gut than we do in our brain. So the gut bacteria is imperative. And there are more bacteria on the top of our skin in terms of our microbiome than there are actually skin cells, which blows me away as well. So I always knew the microbiome was a really important thing to protect, particularly with COVID, with masking, and we're not wearing masks as much as we did a year or two ago, but we still are wearing them. But we also have had a huge challenge immunologically with our bodies. We've also been tucked away in a bubble for 2 years, and our immune system hasn't been challenged at all. So we're going to find the flu season is going to hit, it's going to hit us harder. Things that normally wouldn't bother our skin may bother us now because we've been in our little immune bubble. So we really need to look after the barrier. And B is for barrier. So the two most important things I think is niacinamide, vitamin B3, because it protects our barrier, increases ceramide production, increases our immunity, really, really key at the moment to protect our skin immunity, and basically does all those wonderful functions like collagen, reducing pigmentation. But vitamin B is the bomb. The other thing is using prebiotics combined with postbiotics. not probiotics, postbiotics. They're the probiotic that's been chopped up into active pieces so the body recognizes them. And we don't put whole bacteria in skincare. That is really dumb because preservatives will kill the bacteria. So anytime you see live bacteria in a skincare product, it will probably not have a preservative because the bacteria would not last for more than a day. So my big thing at the moment is looking at, we have a product called Dermiotic, but there's a lot of pre and postbiotics coming out on the market now. I think that's a really important part of every skincare regimen before you apply your serums. And I think also the big thing is looking at anti-aging from a cellular perspective and some of the exciting new ingredients, one in particular that preserves the length of our telomeres. It's actually a new botanical ingredient from the Lepacho bark of the Lepacho tree. And it stops our telomeres shortening. And when our telomeres shorten, our cells basically begin to age. And when the protective part on our DNA, the telomere, is no longer there, our cells go into senescence and become zombie cells and can damage the other cells in our body. So I think anti-aging cellular ingredients are important, but I think at the moment for the barrier, we really need to look at pre and postbiotic skincare.
Yeah, good to know. Okay,
yep.
I'll keep my eye out then.
Yeah.
And I do have one final question for you, Terri, which is a little bit more personal. Just thinking more broadly about your career and the fact that you have been in so many roles over the years. You've been a business owner, a cosmetic chemist, and obviously a brand founder for Synergy Skin. What is your greatest piece of advice for new business owners and budding entrepreneurs, particularly in our professional beauty industry?
I think the thing I learned was overnight success takes a long time. So there is no such thing as overnight success at all. I worked very hard, and another little acronym I use is the path to success, PATH, and I believe in those four letters. P is for passion, and having absolute love of what you do. I love formulating so much. I can't even tell you. When I get that spreadsheet up on the computer and I have my library of ingredients and the method, I'm in my happy place. So be passionate about what you do. And the second part is the ability. Don't do things you can't do. In the early days, I had to do everything. I was the graphic designer, the salesperson, the accountant, and the formulator, which I loved, and the educator, but I had to do everything and I was useless at that. So once you can, try and surround yourself with really, really good people to help you with the areas that you're not so great at or you don't love at all. Because if you focus on what you love, success failure is not an option. Success is your only option, really. I think the other thing is to have a clear vision. Always have a clear vision. I remember sitting down when I started Synergy and saying, what can I do differently to other people? And there's not many people that are both the CEO and the formulator of a range and the managing director. And I think having that love of my business, formulate it, is really, really important. So I think that was important for me. And also basically backing yourself. I think a lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm too old. I'm 40, or I'll be told by others I can't do it, and it's fear of failure. Just park it. Park that fear, because it's one of the biggest things holding people back is fear. And everyone used to say to me, aren't you scared? Aren't you scared? And I was challenged. Sometimes I was concerned. But I've never been really scared of forging my way forward. So ability, and the other one is tenacity, a part of the path equation. Just be tenacious. Don't give up. Every problem is a solution just around the corner. I've always believed that. And my son always said one of the things that he knows about me more than anything is my absolute undying tenacity. And finally, the H of the path is hard work. Nothing comes if you just sit back. You have to put in the hard yards. I think I'm at a stage in my life now where I'm not working at 110 miles an hour. I've got the most incredible team. I am just truly blessed with my team. I can take a little step back. I can work on the business more than in the business now. I'm still the formulator, but I don't have to do 1,000 other jobs every day. So I think the path passion, ability, tenacity, and hard work, and backing yourself.
Oh, Terri, you are so inspiring. You are such a wealth of knowledge. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
dishing your brain of knowledge. It's just, yeah, it's amazing to speak with you. And to any of our viewers today, if you haven't yet grabbed a copy of Terri's Skinformation, it's a fantastic read. It's an absolute Bible to me. So I highly recommend you give it a read, and check out the brand's website, because there's some great information there about the products and stocking the brand as well.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.